Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my reaction slash partial TBR video with regards to the 2022 National Jewish Book Awards. I waffled a little bit in my last video, my author's answer video, about whether I wanted to squeeze this in because I'm filming Wednesday night and I'm hoping to get up a Friday Reads video as well. But I'm excited. I figure this will be fun to do. Hopefully get this up Thursday. Anyway, the National Jewish Book Awards are put on by the Jewish Book Council. They started in 1950 and now encompass 18 awards in several, various fiction and nonfiction categories for all age groups. And it's ever expanding and is judged by, I think, several dozen judges, maybe a couple hundred, religious scholars, I think, academics, journalists, that sort of thing, I believe, makes up the judging pool. But I'm just excited to get to talk a bit about Jewish books. And I went ahead and I picked 4 in fiction and 4 in nonfiction that particularly caught my fancy. Two of them, one per category, I have read previously. And some of the rest I hope to get to very soon, or at least they're on my TBR. So without further ado. So starting with nonfiction, one of the memoir finalists was Lost and Found by Kathryn Schulz, which has been on my mind a lot. I brought it up in regards to the Goodreads Choice Awards where it showed up. And it's also currently a contender for the long list for the BookTube Prize, or it was. I think technically that ballot has closed, and we're just waiting to hear from Robert about what got onto the BookTube Prize this year. I am hoping that Lost and Found is one of them, because I remember hearing about this memoir, I think closer to when it came out, and understanding how it was grappling with the loss of a parent and the start of a new romantic relationship and going into a bunch of nuances. So definitely glad to see that it is making positive waves. Then here is the contemporary Jewish life and practice winner. Ta-da! It is On Repentance and Repair by Danya Ruttenberg. I've been talking about this book a lot as well. I read it during the high holidays and it made my top 3 reads of 2022. I just was so invigorated, so challenged by the idea of taking repentance and bringing it back to a Jewish space where you talk about what it really means to assess yourself and to grow as an empathetic person and to not get caught up in like forgiveness culture or shame culture. Like, we all make mistakes, but we have to own up to them. And this really shows ways how to do that. And it invokes Maimonides, the, famous medieval scholar. Oh, it's just packed full of wisdom. So, of course, I recommend this. These next 2 books I'm thinking I might want to make a thing of in the summer when I'll probably be on my BookTube Prize sabbatical and could use some more reading to fill up my space. And one of the things I want to do is focus on the Jewish nonfiction, because I do a whole lot of the Jewish fiction on my own. So I'll start with a history finalist that's kind of fulfilling my need to try biographies, especially ones I can actually find easily. And this is called The Baron, Maurice de Hirsch, and the Jewish 19th Century by Matthias B. Lehmann, which I think is also interesting because it's not only about a person, it's really, I think, contextualizing him, centering him in a time period and what he was able to do. He was like, I believe, a big mover and shaker in terms of the idea of a Jewish voice, as it were. And on a similar note, going with a Sephardic culture finalist, I have The Sassoons, The Great Global Merchants and the Making of an Empire by Joseph Sassoon, who is a distant relation of this family. And they were a Jewish family garnering influence and power around the same time, but from a different cultural vantage point, because the Baron Maurice de Hirsch was Ashkenazi from Eastern European descent, and the Sassoons were Sephardi, and thus of Spanish and North African descent. So it's just nice to get a broader sense and maybe see different parts of the world and different cultural aspects of how Jews were interacting with the world. So I'm excited just to get a more global feel between these 2 influential forces. This book will take place over a longer time span than the other one, but they're in the ballpark, so yeah, it would be interesting to see how they might communicate with each other if I read them back to back. And finally, I wanted to end with a book that did not make it to the awardees or finalists, which was a little disappointing. I was hoping that it would gain good vibes. I assume it was somewhere in the running. And that book is DIRSHUNI, Contemporary Women's Midrash, edited by Tamar Biala, which obviously interested me enough that I have a copy that I will be holding up again in my next book haul. So I immediately was drawn to this when the Jewish Book Council first highlighted it a few months ago, because I take part in BookTube's Maybe Midrash Readathon, which is about reading seriously in fiction and nonfiction about religion, and Midrash is taken from Jewish textual study and writings and how people interact with the sacred texts, and this is traditionally a very male space, so it's always very exciting in the modern age where women, in this case Israeli women, get together and bring new perspectives to things and add their voices. So it's a shame this book wasn't highlighted for the National Jewish Book Awards, but I'm still going to give it a go, probably for maybe Midrash in May. And now on to fiction. I will start with the book I've already read, which was a finalist both for book club fiction and general fiction. It's Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, which certainly a lot more people outside of the Jewish sphere know, and it encompasses a lot of topics. It's mostly known, I believe, for being about gaming culture and friendships in that sphere. But the two main characters are, in fact, Jewish or have Jewish ancestry, and there's action that takes place around a bat mitzvah, and there's a toxic Israeli boyfriend at one point, and things like that. And so under those auspices, the National Jewish Book Awards was able to consider this book, and I'm glad they seemed to enjoy it as much as I did. Next, I'm on to the actual fiction category winner, which is Signal Fires by Dani Shapiro. And indeed, I put this on my TBR immediately after I heard about it through the Jewish Book Council a few months ago. Although I did read Shapiro's latest memoir, and I was surprisingly cool toward that. You know, usually when it comes to memoirs, I think like a lot of people, I give the writers a large berth to explain things through their perspectives, but I found some of the arguments she made about her life to have some fallacies, the way she kind of retconned things. So I guess that's a weird way to say, hey, I'll give her a chance in fiction, but, you know, why not? And, you know, she has a track record where she has a lot of fans, and I probably shouldn't put all my eggs in one basket with her and try to give her another go. And, you know, the premise sounded you know, interesting family drama literary to me, so hopefully I will get to that sometime soon. Next, I have the Hebrew Fiction in Translation winner, which is Love by Maayan Eitan. And this is also something where I feel excited, but maybe a little trepidatious too, because the premise of this one, you know, it's literary and it has the drama, but I'm worried it's a little too experimental, and sometimes that just turns me off and I just can't get invested enough in the story or the characters, but I should go in with an open mind and hope for the best. And next I will move on to the debut fiction winner, which is Abomination by Ashley Goldberg. This is a novel that seems to only be out in Australia, so I'm feeling my US privilege that I don't get easy access to this book. I mean, I've actually been searching for ways to get it, and I can, but it's, you know, not as easy as usual. And this book takes place in Melbourne and looks at the Hasidic community there, and particularly a friendship between two boys at an ultra-Orthodox school. The school undergoes a scandalous event, and it turns the two boys onto different paths, where one ultimately becomes an atheist and the other stays very committed to the ultra-Orthodox lifestyle. And I believe they meet up later and have to confront parts about themselves and their relationship and their past. And I'm hoping that it will be nuanced and engaging, and, you know, it got high props, at least in this award ceremony, so that's promising. And then I immediately thought this could be a nice counterpart to DIRSHUNI for maybe Midrash to be my fiction pick, because you know, this has to do with women's religious space and claiming space in the religious sphere. But then on the flip side, with Abomination, it's about ultra-Orthodox men in a very gender-segregated society and how they deal with religion. So I was excited to think, you know, I think of books in conversation with each other for these sorts of readathons and challenges and that sort of thing. So here we go. I think I have my maybe midrash figured out. We'll see if I stick to it in May. And finally, for the fiction book that it did not make it to the National Jewish Book Awards, I'm going with THISTLEFOOT by GennaRose Nethercott, which is a fantasy, adult fantasy book, I believe it is adult fantasy, that garnered a lot of waves in the wider community. It's based on the Baba Yaga myth, and it brings in Ashkenazi influences as well. But yeah, it just didn't make a splash in the National Jewish Book Awards. And as I think about it now, maybe it is because it is adult fantasy rather than YA fantasy, because in fact there were similar YA fantasy picks that were on the finalist list for YA, but I don't know, maybe the adult readers aren't as taken with the fantasy genre or this particular interest in bringing Ashkenazi influence, magicking it up or anything, but the wider world definitely took notice of THISTLEFOOT, and it was on other awards lists and that sort of thing, and I already figured I would want to read it maybe this year for Sci-Fi September. It's definitely a contender for that, so you might be seeing it again on this channel in the near-ish future. So that about covers it for me now. I will leave Goodreads links and also my own reviews where they are applicable listed down below, as well as a link to the National Jewish Book Award awardees and runners-up list for this year. I seem to be dealing with new technical difficulties, which I'm actually rather anxious about right now, because I've had to start and stop this video a couple of times because I was getting a weird buffering message, which I last got when I corrupted my last chip, which I didn't think would happen again. I am using this camera as I usually do, and so I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I'm hoping all of this will record and post and all of that properly, and that I won't have to go through, you know, the conundrum I did a week or so ago about figuring out what's wrong with the camera when I thought I already fixed it. Oh boy. But all of that being said, so long as everything goes smoothly, I do hope to be back imminently to do a Friday Reads video about all I have been reading of late, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone. Hope you're doing well with your own tech, and I'll see you next time.